Good morning and welcome to this week's Jump discussion on recruitment. And this week we're looking at, does your business attract clients? And no, that's really, think about it, does your business actually attract clients is what we're going to talk about today. So let's look at certain client attraction and what attracts clients and keeps clients with you. Okay, so up to 75% of the B2B companies take time and care to establish the value proposition. Yet, according to the Stat Lab, around 90% of your potential buyers haven't even made their mind up about their brand or the brand they're going to use or what to do with their business before they start searching for a supplier. Loyal customers are 5 times more likely to purchase again purchase again for 4 times. I'll start that again. Loyal customers are 5 times more likely to purchase again and 4 times more likely to refer a friend to a company. And 39% of CEOs say customer experience is the most effective method of creating competitive advantage, which is the most common answer when asked how to create a competitive advantage. Less than 1 in 4 business have required or have the required technology to deliver consistent and personalized experience across their channels. And customer-centric brands report profit of 60% higher than those that fail to focus on their customer experience. And customers are 2.4 times more likely to stick with a brand that have solved their problems. And in the last year, Yelp recorded 23% increase in customers monitoring long-term or long waiting times and 229% increase in their reviews mentioned shortage of staffing. Unfilled vacancies are shown to reduce output levels per worker of up to 75%. So, today I'm joined by Heather. Heather's been glad. She said that just before we came on, we had problems launching Zoom, so I've been in a panic because it was about 2 minutes to 11 before I could actually get onto the platform itself. But Heather said she was glad to get back with the tribe of old people. I don't know what she meant, Paul, but I felt quite insulted by that from that. But
there wasn't good context for that comment.
Well, I'm not going to give the further context behind that. I'm just going to take it personally.
She's talking about my dad, who's 92, so I think that must be the reason she said that.
So let's kick off today. And as we know, Heather hasn't been with us for a while, so we're going to kick off with the first question to see what she thinks about that, because we always like that. So we talked a lot about customer experience, but this webinar was about, do you attract customers? And obviously part of that is the customer experience that people get. So let's look at the first thing then. What are the key indicators that signal a broken outbound client attraction strategy? And how can recruiters identify and address these issues within their business?
Well, this one's going to be passed firmly into Paul Jacobs' thing because, I'm a people professional. I'm here to learn.
Chicken.
You chicken. Yeah. I love it. All right, let me jump in. I'll do my thing here. So, it's a great question, Howard. Funny enough, I was at a summit, as it was called. I don't think that's your expression. Not summit, a summit.
Easy. Us Northerners will get upset.
I don't want to upset any Northerners, but I was at a summit, one of the recruitment summits yesterday, and we were talking about the amount of clients on average that organizations, recruitment businesses are engaged with, and in most instances, particularly the SMEs. And let's be honest, the industry is dominated by SME recruiters. You're talking probably 85%, if not a higher percentage, of UK recruitment as SMEs by any definition. So, but most SMEs have a very small client base, And in fact, if you look a bit deeper into that, what you find is that when you look at the contacts that you're actually working alongside your clients themselves, the human beings you talk to, it's not a particularly big number, and and there was a common view that probably in the order of 70% of most recruitment businesses' clients are made up of maybe 5 organizations. In other words, a very small client base and a small number of clients that they're actually talking to, they have relationships with. When you're looking therefore at outbound client attraction strategies, and in terms of who's using you. In many instances, when you dig into the client base, which we do at Jump regularly, constantly with our clients, it's a scarily small number. So when you then end up in the kind of previous 15 months that we've encountered, and by the way, amusingly at this summit, they put up, one of the slides they put up at the beginning of the day was, here's 2023's highlights. And they put up this slide, which was completely blank, which made me laugh. Interestingly, I mean, the room was full of about 60, 70 organizations, and almost without exception, it had a pretty tough year. So the reason I say this is to the people out there listening to us today, if you've encountered, as you probably had, a pretty tough 15, 18 months, you're not alone. The entire industry has had that experience. But I think coming back to the point, if you are only dealing with a few clients and they seize up, they're not doing much, you walk yourself into a difficult position. So I think it begins in you talking about, is it broken? Does it work? My position on it is, in the beginning, is who are we working with? How many clients truly do we have? And how do we increase the number? And I think you've got to start looking at that before you start to think of the strategies to start developing your new client base.
I think you've got to step a little bit further back than that, Paul, actually. I think most recruitment businesses have a very bland, and although they don't like to admit it, almost identical value proposition or customer value proposition. And therefore, most deliver their services in a very different way, but they don't differentiate themselves. So as an indicator that your outbound attraction strategies is broken, it's very simple to me. If your clients are consistently comparing you with your competitors and saying that XYZ agency is offering the same service for cheaper, then I think you need to address your customer value proposition. But I think you're right. We come across this all the time, that lots of small agencies. I was with a client the other day, and they billed 70 clients in their remit. Of those 70 clients, they'd only billed 61 of them once. Yeah. So there was only 9 clients that they built more than twice. Yeah. And so that sort of says that, the fragmentation of your client base is very small. So we got to start to think about, if we stop beating about the bush, we become a little bit lazy when it comes to our marketing. We're not very imaginative in how we do. It's hardly informative, and it doesn't really separate you from your competitors, which means that your brand is not actually doing the thing that it's meant to do. It's meant to create that impulse to engage. It's meant to create the desire to buy. It's meant to create an understanding and differentiation of your value. And so does your sort of solution really cure your clients' problems better than anybody else's? Is, I think, to me, an indication that if your clients are constantly talking about your price, then they're not even thinking about your solution. They're just looking for the quickest win because everything looks the same to their other clients. And I think that, to me, is the strategy that says that your strategy is broken. You haven't got enough clients and your offering is very bland to them.
And just a point, and I agree with everything you've just said, and just a point almost in reverse to that, and this is off the back of a conversation I had this morning with an organisation outside of our shores. I'm not giving away any trade secrets. They actually have a decent size client base. I think again, without giving the number, but it was into the hundreds, but not really penetrating those clients to the degree they could be, in the sense of getting more business, upselling, cross-selling, looking at innovative recruitment solutions. So they're, as you pointed out, they're picking up bits and pieces without necessarily grasping the bigger opportunities that unquestionably sit inside those organizations. So it cuts both ways. On one hand, as you point out, we work with clients and with a small number of clients potentially. On the other hand, you get the other option where we're dealing with a larger number of clients, but just skimming the surface in terms of what we could actually be doing with them.
So let's move that question. Heather, do you want to come in on that question? Because I think that's quite interesting, because obviously you're going to be more from the buyer's point of view, because obviously you've been sold to by lots of rec to recs. Now, I'm not saying that they are the same as recruitment agency, but obviously they're doing the same product service idea. Talk to us about your experience of how you feel that recruiters, reach out to you as as an agency of choice.
Interestingly, my experience as a client was, even though I've spent 20 years of a career in recruitment and really understand recruitment, my experience as a client was pretty poor most of the time. So I had a couple of recruitment businesses that I dealt with all the time because I had long-standing relationships with them. But new businesses' approaches to me were invariably a bit rubbish. They were mostly on the phone, which is good, but the person on the phone was clearly a trainee and sounded like a trainee, and the experience wasn't amazing. I absolutely would have gone out and looked online. So I know we're going to come on to talk about digital presence. As a client, that was everything to me, was that they had a good digital presence, because, you know, even if I had a really competent approach to me on the phone or at a networking event or however it was that that person approached me, there was no way I was going to buy from them without going and looking at what was online about them.
Yeah.
You know, so there had to be a congruence between what they were saying to me and what I was seeing online. It had to match, and it had to speak to me as a client.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the first thing that we talk about when we talk about is what's the indicators that your process is broken and not attracting clients. And people tend to forget that nowadays, if we go back 10 years ago, that marketing, then engagement, review your competitors, purchase sort of cycle, you know, your marketing was done at that marketing stage, and then it's all a human interaction. What they're saying now is that the marketing stage goes all the way through to the buying stage.
And between 100% it does, yeah.
And between 50
and client, 100%.
Yeah, and between 50 and 90% of the choice that the client makes to buy is made before they speak to the salesperson. So, you know, what your outreach is, and that goes back to that comment about, we have a very bland marketing strategy, you know, that doesn't differentiate you, because we have become lazy. And we are, I keep saying this as well at the moment, you know, if you look like a recruiter, sound like a recruiter, then you are a recruiter, and everyone looks and sounds like a recruiter. So how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? And that's the problem that we've got. And that's the bit that we've got to change to then try capture that client. So that's what your brand's about capturing your client's interest. So let's move on to that digital question then. So in today's digital age, what role does content marketing play in attracting clients to a recruitment business?
You have to stand out as an expert. You know,
Yeah,
I heard
everything.
It is everything, isn't it? I heard an interesting cliche yesterday, but I hadn't heard it before. It is a cliche, but it's niche. The guy said it's niche or niched, which I love that. I've actually used it already in a slide. So whoever said it, sorry, I've stolen your content. Niche or niched, and I think that's interesting. In other words, you know, be a specialist or be nothing. And I do think that you've got to be prepared to say, this is what we do, and we do it very well. And then off the back of that, be seen in a very transparent way, verbally, in writing, putting content out there on all the social media channels, to be talking knowledgeably as an expert about your particular sector.
Just to put the client perspective on what you're saying, Paul, if that's going to be the sort of role, because I'm definitely not a marketing expert, but to put the client perspective on that, most of the people who are buying your services aren't going to be buying them every day, right? It is an intermittent purchase for most of your clients.
Yeah.
So if you are not in their mind on a regular basis in between those moments when they need to buy the service from you, you're forgotten. So for me, content marketing is one of the ways in which you keep yourself at the forefront of their mind. So in that niche, narrow moment when they need you, you're the one they think of.
Correct.
Now you can do that using clever cookies and have yourself pop up in front every time they go online. Or you can do it by creating content that's relevant, that they want to read and they want to see. And they're interested.
Totally right.
I'm going to challenge that comment slightly, Heather. If you look at the stats that came through of our £43 billion turnover in the recruitment market, the vast percentage was temp.
Yeah.
So therefore, a temp supplier comes to you more often than a perm supplier. So your perm is a very ad hoc process. Your temp supplier, which is the
but even a
majority of the
temp,
business,
once they've bought your temp,
but
that's
so the
it.
question,
The decision is intermittent still, Howard, I would challenge.
The question though is, it's not the decision that's intermittent, it's how we sell intermittently, because we
Yes.
only sell the product once and then we never sell another product to them because we think we've sold that product.
Yeah.
So I think if we go back to that, if 50 and 90% of the customer journey happens online, they're checking out your website, your social media, your LinkedIn posts, then your content counts more than you can imagine. And so what you're talking about, and this is what most recruiters do in the most, it's they post job, 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 how to write a CV, job, 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 how to answer an interview question, job, 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 job.
Yeah,
5 interview questions that you should ask.
That's not going to engage your client.
No,
job,
it's
job,
bland.
job, job.
Yeah.
So it's bland. So we should be thinking about what's important to the client.
100%.
What does value look like to them? How do you make the client look good? What pain points and challenges can you cure for them? And therefore, what does your customer value proposition content create with regards to value in their mind? And we don't talk about those things. We just blandly put things out into the marketplace and hope that they cure their problems. But most of the things that we put out have nothing to do about what value looks like for the client and how the clients perceive that value. So I think in this digital age, what you're actually putting out onto LinkedIn, what you're putting out onto the job boards, what you're putting out onto social media, what blogs you're writing onto your website, etc., all count, because you'd be surprised how much interaction that they get with the client and the candidate. And I think that's the bit that we start to think about. Our content becomes more and more consumable. And the more consumable it becomes, the more it pulls people towards you. But if the content isn't relatable, then people won't read it.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how much that relates back to something that we're always talking about on, and I know this is beating the same drum, but it's about being close to your clients. So you need to understand what it is your clients are interested in. And you can't, if we only create our marketing strategy from our point of view as recruiters without really understanding what are the things that are pain points for our clients or that they're interested in or a part of their future and their strategy, if we don't have that close understanding, we can't create content that's relevant to them. Or we might by accident.
Well, it's entirely true. Hang on, Howard, just a second. I think there's something else that we need to say here, and that is that marketing in the past was seen as a bit of a luxury item, and particularly for SMEs, can't afford marketing people. To my mind now, and it almost doesn't matter how big a business you have, you need marketing. Whether you're going to engage somebody internally or you're going to need to do that externally, you've got to be putting yourself out there. And to your points you've been making very well about content, these things are important. What we're very poor about in our industry, and it's been like this for certainly the 50 years I've been involved in it, is we don't think long term. We're interested in the adrenaline pump of instant results, and marketing is a long tail. It takes a long time. It's stuff you put out there doesn't give you instant results, generally speaking. It's a constant presence saying the right things consistently that draws people towards your brand over a period of time. And because it doesn't necessarily give you instant revenue, people find the prospect of spending money in this space abhorrent. They don't want to do it. They only do it sporadically. Whereas in reality, you've got to be consistent and do it every day, every week, and build your profile over a prolonged period of time.
So if you look at that, then let's build on the concept of that inbound attraction. So Paul, what you're talking about, so what are some of the essential elements then of a compelling employer brand strategy that can attract clients organically?
So, I mean, just to support what I've said, I think recruiters, and I mean, let's put this into a sort of macro position. I always say nowadays, when I started in recruitment, which was, we always joke was a long time ago, but when I started, being a marketeer wasn't, you didn't have those conversations. It just wasn't something we talked about. And to your point earlier, Howard, we only advertised jobs. It's all we did. Nowadays, I think that if you want to be a success in recruitment, even as a rookie consultant, you have to understand, and it should be embedded in the things we discuss when we interview people, embedded in job descriptions. You have to be, by any definition, a marketeer. You have to be keenly interested and I would suggest, enthusiastic about using social media channels to elevate your personal profile and elevate the profile of your business. It's not something you can play with from time to time, going from every now and then have a crack at it when your candidate attraction diminishes or your clients stop using you, as it were, or you have a sort of slowdown in vacancies or temp or contract opportunities coming in. It's got to be consistent. And I think that when you look at the way our industry is now moving forward, when you consider the impact of AI, and you consider all the new tech in our business, back to Heather's point, you've got to really be involved on a human basis with your clients, get very close to them. But that also spills into your persona, your presence as a business and as a person on every aspect of social media. And you can go right through the full sort of gamut of what sort of social media we're talking about here. I even heard TikTok we talked about yesterday, a lot of people using TikTok well, Facebook, all the usual social media channels. And you can't avoid it any longer. You have to be very involved in it. And to the point about positioning, and Heather makes a great point. If you only use businesses sporadically, whether that is perms or temps or contractors, you want to be in a position where when they are thinking of recruiting, your name is the one that is literally hitting them between the eyes.
So if you think about what we're talking about, you're talking about consistency, you're talking about having an authentic branding message, but what we're talking about is multi-channel. And at the moment, most recruiters aren't multi-channel. So I always think if you're going to sort of take that branding, it's, do you speak your customer's language? So we're not speaking recruitment, we're speaking the customer's language. Keep it simple, keep it clear, spell out your features, but outline the advantages, leaving the client sort of thinking how that's going to actually help them. I suppose create a message that creates an image in the customer's mind of what working with you would be like, and then back that up with data, stats, testimonials, case studies, that actually pull the client in. It's really sort of, to me, it's quite simple, is that, if you speak the customer's language and then link that to your features, advantages and benefits, it's a lot easier how the customer then can see working with you as being an advantage, and that they can see you as a prospect rather than what they normally do is treat us as a suspect, and therefore it's not a price conversation, it's a value conversation about how you can actually help them with what they need help in. And sometimes that's not just about putting a bum on a seat, it's about retention, it's about how they position their company in the marketplace rather than on the marketplace. And I think that's a very different thing, that most companies position their business on the market looking for a candidate rather than in the market looking for the best candidates. And there's a very difference between the two, and that's part of how we should be marketing ourselves, but how we should then market our clients out to the market.
Yeah, and I think there's something really interesting in that, Howard, about in your question about the congruity and authenticity and consistency of that messaging. If that we have to understand that everybody in our business who's posting stuff anywhere in all of the channels, not just stuff that we're directly controlling as an organization, needs to be consistent. So we need to be having that conversation with people on a regular basis about what is the value proposition, what is the brand, what are our values, and how are we reinforcing that in everything that you're posting? Because people creating their own LinkedIn brands, brilliant, but if it's not congruent with your overall corporate brand, or your organizational values, we've got to be reminding people of that so that the posting is congruent.
It's not only congruent, but also, it's also got to be very carefully worded. Language is important in this day and age. So what you put out there.
I've seen some hideous things that you just think, really? That's what you want your candidates to see? Or that's what you want your clients to see?
Well, yeah,
but
absolutely.
That's an interesting point, though, isn't it? Because we go back to that bit at the beginning when we talked about that consistency of what message are you sending out, and does it cure the client's problems, etc. But we're also thinking about, Heather, you were saying it was good to be back with my tribe, because the webinar that you were on yesterday had a very young outlook. So what we might think is hideous, they might think is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a very interesting sort of thought process to be thinking about is that what's that? But then who are you trying to attract? So if your buying customers are between the ages of 20 and 30, that'd be very different to your buying customers who are between the ages of 45 and 50, 60, etc. So your language, as you were saying, Paul, there is very important on how you approach your customers. But I think that's going back to understanding what the customer's language actually is, and are we speaking their language rather than speaking our language? And that's that being mirrored to your client base. Do you match your client base? So that means understanding your client base really, really well. So that means your customer value proposition needs to be able to actually cure the client's problems. And that's the bit that we tend not to think about. We just think we're recruitment rather than actually what services do we actually offer? How do we compartmentalize those services? How do we drive those services down? So if we look at that, then how important then is it to develop then a world-class customer value proposition when looking to increase both your existing and your new client development, and a price that then doesn't get pushed back down?
Let me ask a question towards the people listening to us right now, and that is, who is advising you? Who advises you? Because what we tend to do in our industry is we sit in a room, we look at whatever challenges we have. We often get our own colleagues around us, and we sit and we debate, what do we need to do to change? How are we going to be more attractive for candidates, for clients? What messages do we need to be sending out there? Let's look at our processes. Let's consider times of the year when we need to be doing X, Y, and Z, and so forth. And often we get great ideas and we get good action points, and off we trot. I would challenge that a little bit and say the people that should be advising us are our customers and our candidates. And I'd ask the question, who's on your advisory board? Do you have an advisory board? Do you have, on a regular basis, let's say quarterly, a meeting with a selection of candidates, job seekers, or employees? Do you have in that discussion or separate discussion employers, people that actually take on the kind of people that you sell, if I can use that expression, that you promote? Because we're great experts within our own four walls, but we very rarely reach out to talk to people in our markets to ask for their advice. This back to the point you're making about what's our market and who in that market could give us a good steer. So when you're looking at your own business, doesn't matter about the size of it, who's giving you advice? Obviously, we do that for a living. Jump Advisory Group is what we do. We give advice to people, and we do that from the perspective of helping them to grow their businesses because of our track records and so forth. But in addition to people like us, we should be regularly talking to employers who maybe are trusted, who would come in and sit with us and say, look, have you thought about this? Are you saying that? Maybe you should consider the other. And indeed talking to candidates about their journey, their experience with us. How do we improve those experiences? Without that input, we are working from a very isolated, myopic position of thinking we know the answers without actually really talking to our audience to the degree we should be.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because what flies out at me from that original question, Howard, is a world-class customer value proposition, and it's, do we understand what a world-class customer proposition is in our market? Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and of course it's important, but how do we know what the right customer value proposition is?
Yeah.
How and what the right, and is it price sensitive? Because actually, where we become a genuine partner to our clients, price stops being such an issue.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think if you've got the right offering,
with bated
people
breath
will do
to
that.
hear what you're going to say, Howard.
Yeah, go on, Howard.
So if you think then, is your customer value proposition fit for purpose? So exactly what we're saying. Does it match what your clients needs? And then how do you price your proposition? So is it priced once and then never addressed again? Or every time the client comes to you with a service that they need from you that's part of your customer value proposition, do you reprice it? So, if it's a temp, do you reprice it? If it's a perm deal, do you reprice it? If it's a high-end perm deal, do you reprice? Or do you just sell it once? Because that's what we tend to do. But your price should be initially there to pay for your business and ensure you make profit. So does your price match your own values, or are you giving away your service for almost free because you're too desperate to get the client to pay for you? You then start to think about your customer value proposition, I think, and what's your people strategy to deliver it? And does your tech stack complement that strategy? So can you deliver it fast? Can you deliver it easy? Can you get the data? Can you do the things that are doing that? And then obviously, are your purposes fit for purpose? Are your processes actually going to actually help you do that? And I think when we start to think about our marketing processes that we're going out there to attract candidates, we don't. Now, I think I'll speak for Paul, and if Dave, if he was here, when we go out and see an agency, there's probably issues in all of those areas that need addressing, and addressing them helps with the retention and attraction of new clients, but more importantly, ensures your pricing structure is actually fit for purpose, and you're working for a margin that your business can survive on, but thrive on. And I think that's the bit we tend to forget. We tend to just sort of look at what the client demands, and rather than walking away. And your conversation there, Paul, now I'll use this as a prime example. When Adecco bought Spring, computer people at the time were about the second or first biggest agency in the recruitment market in IT in the UK. Spring were about 4, 5 maybe in the UK, and we were worried about how we were going to amalgamate the two businesses together, until we looked at the overlap of the client base, which was 2%. Our market is so fragmented that you can walk away from virtually all your client base and find a brand new client base that will pay you more money if you've got the kahunas to go away and do that. And I think that's the bit. Are we making it fit for purpose for each customer? Are we walking away when we have to walk away? And are we proud to stand by our value and our price, and not just give everything away for cheap? And I think that's a very different when it comes to a world-class value proposition. They don't negotiate on price.
Here.
It's stunned Paul into quiet in silence. So
No,
I either hit a no or talking rubbish.
No, I mean, I agree with you.
Writing it down, Howard.
No, I was just thinking.
He's stealing it again. He's stealing it.
He stopped for breath, I thought. I mean, so I couldn't agree more. Look, in every walk of life, we pay more for services that we consider to be superior to others. We all do it. We do it from a consumer perspective, and our industry is no different. It's very difficult to command a higher fee or a higher charge rate when you're, as you said earlier, Howard, you're perceived as looking and sounding like every other recruiter.
Yeah.
Why would anybody pay more for what is almost certainly the same service? And the candidates, how often can you genuinely say our candidate is uniquely, exclusively ours? Very rarely. So, if you are not in a position if you don't position yourself in a standout fashion, then of course you're going to struggle to get more by way of fees. Absolutely. I think price is a smokescreen. We use it as an excuse, and I think that it's really a big issue when your level of service, both to candidates and clients, don't forget they talk to each other, is at a superior level. If you provide better service, you can generally I'll correct myself. You can always command a higher level of income.
So I'll just put one comment into that, because it's all about the marketing. So if you think Skoda, VW, Audi, Porsche, all owned by the same company. Push Porsche to one side slightly. The cars in the VW, Audi, Skoda range are almost 80% identical.
Yes.
They're made of the same products, the same stuff that goes in. It's the marketing that's different and the outer shell that makes it look different.
Yep.
And people buy the marketing.
That's right.
So is the Skoda a better car than the Audi? Probably not technically, but actually it's the way it's marketed. So let's move on very quickly anyway, because I don't want to run out of time. Okay. So client acquisition. it feels like a numbers game. So have we got any metrics, and I mean quickly on metrics, have we got any metrics or KPIs that recruitment businesses should be tracking to measure their effectiveness of their client attraction efforts?
Look, I'm going to come back to the same old trope that we come out with constantly, because there's nothing new to say about this. Get in front of your clients all of the time. Please, 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 I beg you, get tight to clients, because everything we're talking about here relates to knowing what your clients need and building deep trusted advisor positioning with them. Without that approach, so if you're talking KPIs, if your number one most important KPI is not client meetings or review meetings, whichever way you want to put it, and you're looking at current, lapsed and new clients, then you have no way of not only maintaining your client base and developing it further, but winning new clients. There's no way you're going to do that. And if people are not prepared to listen to this piece of very strong advice, your business will diminish gradually, maybe even dramatically over the next 2-3 years. You have to be tight to your clients. Human touch is where it's at as the counterpoint or counterbalance to the advent of AI. AI is not going to sit in front of clients. We do that, and we have to be consultative. I'll add one other thing in here. When you're looking at KPIs, consider this as a new KPI: good attrition versus bad attrition. So when you lose clients, ask yourself, is that because we wanted to, because actually we didn't want to deal with this organization any longer? So that's good attrition. We made a conscious decision. This was not a good client for us for a variety of reasons, and we don't have time to get into it. Or is it bad attrition? We've lost that client because, frankly, we're doing a rotten job. And if you're going to measure any kind of acquisition and retention, please look at it from that very basic perspective. Good attrition versus bad attrition. If you haven't got that KPI in play, start to think about using it, because I think it's a very important one to consider going forward.
I think the way I look at this, and I'm going to try and give metrics rather than sort of the age-old sort of get out and see your clients. If most of this work is happening behind the scenes, i.e. it's our marketing, then we should be looking at, if we're sending out, let's just say 1,000 emails, what's the percentage open rate of those emails? What are you driving that email to? So I always look at the open rate of an email. The open rate of the email is all based on one thing. It's not based on the content of the email. It's based on the actual subject line that makes people open the email. So is your subject line right? So look at the open rate of your email. According to the marketeers, a good open rate of any email campaign is 10%. You know, when we put the emails out for our webinars, we're getting an open rate of nearly 35%. The click-through rate, though, going on to the actual call to action, so that's the bit that I would measure, how many clients get into that call for action stage, okay, is really paramount. So if I look at the call for action stage, I know people who've clicked onto our Zoom page to sign up for this webinar is twice as many as the people who actually sign up for the webinar. So if I can capture those people, those 2/3 that don't sign up, they are also interested, they wouldn't have clicked on. So to me, they're the metrics that we start to create, and that's the people, Paul, which you're going out to meet, talk to, and speak to, because they're the people that say that your effectiveness, as your attraction effectiveness is working, because you can see who's actually genuinely interested. So rather than trying to call the whole 1,000, you call the ones that are opening, but the ones that actually click through to your call to action, you call them. And so if you can see that, then that's great. Now, most email marketing strategies have all that available at your fingertips. So you can see who the right people to be calling, when to call them, what you can talk to them about, because you've driven them to a certain part of your website. That's when you know that your customer value proposition is actually pricking the interest of your clients who want to buy.
And do you know how to go even further back? The step before that is how good is the data that you've got on your mailing list in the first place? So
that's very true,
have you got the right people on your mailing list? Are you targeting your email campaign at people who might want to open it, or are there just spurious names? And you know, I'll give you this as an example. I accidentally clicked on an organisation's LinkedIn post once, about a year ago, and I came out of it within seconds. But as a result of that, they scraped my email, and they've been sending me marketing emails daily for the last year. So I've never clicked on it, but it's an experiment for me to see how long they're going to do that before they take me off their mailing list.
And it's interesting that you haven't unsubscribed.
No, deliberately, because I want to see how long they'll keep it up.
Yeah,
and I always think people are worried about email campaigns because they're worried about people unsubscribing. They unsubscribe when they don't think it's an advantage to them or a value to them.
Yeah.
So in our experience then, so what are the common pitfalls or misconceptions that recruiters encounter when attempting to attract clients, and how do they overcome these challenges and stay ahead of the competition really in what I would class as a very crowded marketplace?
So you've got to look at we've been talking about this, your communication channels. You know, there's no point. You look at the demographics. Who are we trying to attract? It's easy. We talk about clients, very sort of bland expression, clients. You know, it's who are our clients? What are their demographics? Increasingly, the demographics of our clients are people who communicate via social media, who communicate in shorthand, who communicate via video. So if you're using old school methodology of trying to communicate, to trying to tempt clients or even candidates to come in your direction, what are you doing? What are you saying? What channels are you utilizing? I mean, if you're, to give you a very extreme example, if you constantly email people of a certain age, shall we say, more senior end of the scale, they probably only look at their emails once or twice a week. It doesn't work. If you post something to their houses, they may well respond instantly or even knock on their door, you know. So if you're looking at the younger generation, you have the opposite end of the scale where they are consistently staring at their phones, their iPads. How are you encountering them?
I think that's the other way around.
No, I don't agree with that.
Paul, I'm ringing 2000. I'm ringing 2024 for you, Paul. Okay, I'm telling you now, kids do not read their emails. Kids do not read their texts. They do not. Older people hang on their email. Older people hang on that type of thing.
I disagree with that. Well, we'll have to agree to
disagree. Completely disagree. So
I'm going to Howard on this one.
I'm going to put it in a different way. I think we don't understand our competitors' customer value proposition. So how do we compete against them? I don't think we understand our clients' customer value proposition. So how do we actually help them? So we need to sort of do some due diligence, I think, constantly on our competitors and have more in-depth data on what our clients are doing and what that market's doing. And you need to be constantly refining your customer value proposition and make it unique to your clients, adding constant value. We need to keep testing and reviewing to make sure it works. And then you can start to develop and build a world-class, what does good look like, but not from your point of view, but from the client's point of view.
Yeah, so I think data is everything. It's absolutely, is it working? How's it working? Who's opening it? Why are they opening it? Yeah.
So when we go out to 100%. Clients, what we should be asking is, why did they choose us? You know, what the general experience of working with us? What's the general experience of working with our competitors? What did we do to find, or what we do to find that's most helpful about our service? How do we compare our service to other vendors? And what suggestions do they have to help us develop our strategy? And I think that's the thing that we tend not to do when we want to sort of build something. We tend not to go out, and you said that earlier, Paul, we tend not to go out and ask our clients what we're building. But our clients do exactly the same to us. They don't come and ask us what they need from a recruitment point of view when they're looking for people, and they just blindly stumble into the marketplace.
One other thing worth mentioning here, and we have said this, and I think everybody will accept this point, we give up too easily. You know, it's not the first or the second call or the third call. You know, you've got to keep trying. You've got to be persistent, resilient. It's the seventh, eighth phone call, eighth text, email, whatever it is we're doing that maybe hits the spot. And back to Heather's point, that it may be that it's that, you know, the people you're trying to speak to, that you want to go and meet It may be that they're not offended by you or bothered by you. It's just they don't need you at this moment in time. And so you have to keep trying. You have to carry on going. Don't accept no. You just keep trying. The trouble is, most people give up after the second, third time. You ask your consultants, why aren't you getting anywhere? Oh, I've phoned them, I've written to them, and they didn't get anywhere. How many times? 2, 3 times, and they're not interested. Well, they're not interested at the moment, but if you keep trying, at some point they may well be. And people just give up far too easily. You have to be, as everybody knows listening to this, incredibly resilient. Don't understand the word no. It's you keep going, and it's often that 7th, 8th, 10th, 20th opportunity. Bingo, you're in. And I think when I think back to the wins that I had when I was a young consultant or as a young manager of an office and throughout my career, it was persistence that paid off. It wasn't even necessarily about being the most inventive person or the most creative with marketing. It came down to something very important. We were intensely persistent, kept going, kept trying. And I think it's still an important point today.
So let's move on to the last question because we are pushing on time here. So looking towards the future, what emerging trends or technologies do you believe will have a significant impact on client attraction within the industry?
AI.
Yeah.
AI is the answer to everything at the moment.
Yes, it is.
But only because it gives you access to information about the things that your clients are interested in without you necessarily needing to know all of that and have that specialism. So you can draw on all of the tools that AI gives you to do the things that you might have wanted to do but didn't feel you had the skills to do. So it kind of democratizes that information and that skill level. So I don't think it will detract from what Paul's talking about with that personal persistence and that need for a personal connection, because people buy from people.
Yeah.
But I think it democratizes our ability to create content marketing that's relevant to our clients.
And you win the prize for the best word used in this webinar, democratizes, which actually you get 2 prizes because you said it twice. So I think I'm definitely owning that word now for the rest of the day. I think you're right. AI, absolutely. And everybody listening to this will have already be getting the experiences of, maybe you, as you said it earlier, Heather, you've shown an interest in something and then you absolutely spammed for the next 12 months. You begin to recognize the fact that AI is picking out what you're interested in and is then bombarding you with information. Technology is going to move in this direction in our industry too. We'll be able to engage with candidates and clients in a much more compelling fashion. It will mean investment. We have to invest in this technology. As with all technology, it will diminish in price. A lot of this stuff will diminish in price. I'm talking to clients again this morning. Somebody mentioned to me that a piece of kit that they already have has got some AI technology in that they didn't even aware of.
AI,
exactly.
Into their existing tools. So should we take bets on whether Howard's going to disagree with this or
no? I'm not going to
semi-disagree.
I'm not going to disagree, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the viewpoint of it. What does AI designed to do, and what does AI actually create?
Yeah.
AI creates a difference in the buying trends of the human interaction. And therefore, if we don't understand the buying trends of our clients and how our clients consume goods, then how we're selling to them doesn't make an impact. And so if you think about anything that you're buying now, first thing you do, you buy something, you then go online to research it. You research to see whether it's any good and see what reviews you've got, but you also research if you can get a better price. But then when you come to buy something, it usually has 3 different ways or 4 or 5 different ways that you can purchase it, all at different prices. And so how we consume or how we buy our buying trends have absolutely changed. And, simple thing, if you sort of look about, buying a holiday, before you had to go to the travel agent to buy a holiday, you then buy your traveler's checks, etc. You now buy everything online. You now don't have to go and get traveler's checks because you can use your cards abroad, etc., without any costs. So our buying trends actually change, and technology drives some of that change. So I think we can look at AI; it will make a big impact, but I think the biggest impact is how people buy and how people consume that. And if you think about, we'll go back to Paul's ageist comments about how people do things.
I don't think they're ageist.
Yeah, they were, Paul. They were.
I used to go to town when I was
as well as from
my kids' ages. I used to go to town because I wanted to buy something. They go to town now to meet their friends. They don't buy anything. They buy virtually everything online. And so the buying trends have absolutely changed on how we procure and how we buy stuff. So have our service, as our customer value proposition changed to recognize that. So let's cut that off today before Paul gets in with another point. So we're going to cut that off. Okay. Next week, we've got Simon Block from GMW on. Okay. And he's going to talk about the changes in the payroll that are coming on, including holiday pay, etc. Yeah. So changing the holiday pay and how temp staff will be paid in the future. So I think it'd be, if you're doing temp
really
staff,
looking forward to that one.
It'd be really interesting.
Very important.
So, ladies and gents, thanks very much. Paul, you get back to not answering your emails. Heather, we'll get back to answering ours. Okay, and we can work from there. See you all next week.
See you guys. Bye now. Bye everybody.
See you soon. Bye.